On the subject of AI generated art again. Coincidentally, the questions from the students recently about artwork and general creativity, I suppose you could extend it to, about the human condition, or of the human condition, and how you get into the kind of headspace for making that kind of work, which I just briefly said in my walk is possibly a bit of a cliched dead end to examine. However, I think we have a clearer idea now of what exactly the human condition related to art production is not. And I think artificially intelligent generated digital processed art is possibly very not that thing. I take, for example, the drawing here that I'm working on. This carries lived human experience, my human experience. It's about the loss of my lover of 32 years. Now, I'm sure you can imagine the intensity of emotion in that kind of experience. But even in recounting it, you can't feel that intensity. And that's the space I'm working in. My personal experience. This is what I'm feeling I have to communicate. I'm communicating it because it's just the way I deal with my emotional state, I suppose, my headspace. That's how I navigate this kind of sort of mad, fucked up world. That's my human condition at the moment. Perhaps in putting it out into the broader world, I'm offering, I don't know, like a tool for other people to use it as a kind of jumping off point, a diving board into their own personal experiences and emotions, and getting them to navigate that within themselves. Perhaps it's the same way that I listen to music and it can set off very extreme emotions. Now, the writers of that music, when they're making music for a similar reason or for a similar emotional need, that means something to them. That's personal to them. That's their route through the emotional mess that their lives have possibly just navigated, and now they're kind of putting it into some semblance of rationality. I can't feel their emotion directly as they are, but I can use what they've produced to help me perhaps do the same thing. Perhaps that's another reason for making art, is to help other people through similar crises. Is that too big a notion for it? Just navigating through the difficulties and the sort of day-to-day realities of life. Perhaps that's another purpose. Stories, sharing stories to help people make their own stories, to make sense of what's happened to themselves. Perhaps that's a purpose for it. The problem with AI is that it doesn't concern itself with that journey, that navigation, that process of making to kind of forge your way through a confused map. AI art only concerns itself with the end point. It's a product. How quickly can we have something made that approximates to this set of ideas, you know? And for me, and I think for a lot of other creative people, the end point holds no real significance. It's not a product, it's a process. And the central driver of AI art is to minimize that process, to shorten that process. You know, it's the digital manifestation of impatience. I can't wait. I want it now. If I have it now and I don't have to put in the effort, I don't have to put in the work, then for that piece of commissioned artwork or that piece of commissioned music or writing, I can charge more money and it's cost me less to make. It's a product. I sell my art because I need to be able to put bread and water on the table. That's the only reason. If I was of independent means, I wouldn't be worried about selling art. It would either stay here or I would just give it away. This drawing, for example, was made over a period of about 3 days. The ideas behind it came through making it. I had a rough idea of how I wanted to portray my Colleen, but it wasn't until I was involved in making it that the composition of the entire work came to a kind of fruition and then resolution. And as I looked at what I was making, I realized that it also bore, coincidentally, some similarities to a small poem that I'd been writing about the loss of Colleen as well. And then that became a core part of the finished piece of work. The AI algorithms don't work like that. They work on an overall generalized mean, an average of work that expresses these kind of ideals. And that is not the process of actually making art. That's not how it works when you're involved in making it. My experience as a maker, or 40 adult years experience of making art, allowed me to see some aspects of progress within this that were working, and then to stop and sit back and wait, and then make the decision to not continue working until the next day, so that my head was clear and I wasn't lost in the kind of centrality of the process of making, because that's another part of the making of art. The other part of art is not just the doing it, but the reassessment of what you're doing, and then the continuation. And I did that 2 or 3 times over those 3 days to arrive at a point where I thought, this is finished. I am no longer interested in working more on this piece of work. This has said what I want it to say. So I think essentially what I'm saying is that not only is AI art not art if the art personally is the process of making it, and the fact that it does all that it can do to minimize and eradicate that process, I would say AI art is in fact anti-art. It's not art at all. And it's up to the viewer to decide what they want to look at and why they're choosing what they're choosing to define as art. What do they get from art? Why have we always held art to be significant? What does it mean to us? Well, if it means that connection to the person that made it and the making of the work, then there is no argument, is there? And even if audiences turn away from artist-produced art in the future in place of instant gratification of a general and average quality and nature, away from art that is made by human hand and head and heart, it won't stop the artists making their art. So there will always be art. Anyway, that'll do. I'll leave you with that, and as ever, look after yourselves, look after those around you, and ta-ta for now.